I don't know about you. The more I live, the more I suspect it's probably not just me. But recently, I have been feeling like in the last 10 years or so, something has felt very out of place, out of sync, unaligned. And I look at the world around me, both in the closest spaces and the furthest reaches. And I find it more and more difficult to recognize the world that I was born in. Now, change is inevitable. I wouldn't even say that it's a bad thing. But it seems increasingly more and more abrasive. And I am the type of person who wants to believe that in everything, every challenge in life, every moment of adversity in life, there's something you can learn. And you can then apply that to your life and encourage yourself to be better. And we've all heard the cliches of, leave the world better off than the way you found it. And being an avid and regular visitor of the great outdoors and the real world, the physical, green, white, wintry world, the dirty, sometimes dangerous, exposing world. I more and more seem to identify with these other animals on the planet, the other living things, the trees, the birds, the deer, the rodents, the lions, the bears. When I'm outside, things make more sense to me. There's a order. There's a organized purpose, it seems. Now, I don't know what that is, but it's something I recognize. And when I look at the world as a whole, as far as society goes, I don't see that same purpose and order. I see the opposite of that. And it's caused me to really start thinking critically about my life and the experiences that I've had and the experiences that I've actually shown here on this YouTube channel for the last 5 to 6 years. When I was younger, I had an affinity for the outdoors. I loved to play outside. I loved the smell of rain. I liked the way the dirt felt in my hands. I liked playing in the sandbox. And I felt connected to the world. As I grew older and I started working and engaging with society, it wasn't aware at the time to me, but I felt like I had been losing that. And then in middle school, I had a very influential teacher who worked hard at creating a syllabus within the school that I was at that encouraged outdoor experiences. And when I was about 14, 15, maybe 16, I went on my first overnight backpacking trip. It was something I had been looking forward to since I went to the school, and my parents had purchased me some gear, and I was just over the moon excited to go. And I was rightfully excited because I went on this backpacking trip, and for the first time in years, I felt like I had found something that made the world make a little more sense. And then one day, I walked into class, and the teacher had rolled out the TV, like the black cart with the TV on top and the DVD and VCR on the bottom. And like most kids, I think like everybody else in the class even, I was pretty excited. I was like, sweet, this is going to be a nice, easy day. Maybe we'll do a video thing. And then he said something to the effect of, something has happened, and we need to watch something. And he rolled the TV in, and on the news was, on the TV was the news. And the news was saying that there had been an attack in New York City, and they're not sure what's happening, and school was canceled, and all the kids were sent home. Now, I'm in Canada. So immediately I realized that being in Canada and on the other side of the continent, this had to have been pretty serious. And I knew that, and I felt that in whatever adolescent understanding of that I could have. And I went home and turned on the news, and there it was. And I don't know if it's hindsight right now that makes me feel like this is what I remember, because memories can be tricky. But I remember watching the towers fall on the news. And the next day, I remember watching people jump from the towers to their death. And I knew at the time that this changed everything. It just changed everything. And I realized that life was not what I thought it was. Now, eventually, we moved on from that. And it became one of those never again type moments. And I remember the world actually rallying around each other, and there was this sense of unity. There was this sense of togetherness that I feel when I'm outdoors. And I thought that was an incredibly strange juxtaposition, because this was a tragic thing, a very tragic thing. How could something good come from something so tragic? And I think maybe that was the very first time I can remember where I started thinking differently about life. And that wouldn't be the end of those types of experiences, not for me, not for you. I don't think for anybody. Because it seems like we have these moments in life that rip us out of this, I don't want to say fantasy, but this mundane routine, and slaps us in the face with the reality that life isn't really what we make it. Life is what is, and our perception of it is what we make it. And I think that's true, because these terrible things that happen rip us out of that state. And we experienced that again recently together. The whole world did, with the pandemic. And at first, myself and many others thought that this was going to be one of those moments where the world kind of rallies together and we overcome this great hurdle. And it seemed at the beginning that that was something that was possible, probable. Even it seemed early on that that's kind of the way that it was going. And then something changed. And I don't know what it was, but there seemed to be this unnatural malice behind it all. And at least that's how it felt for me. And people started treating people differently because of the way they felt about certain topics. And that's not really that surprising for human beings. We haven't been that great at being accommodating to other beliefs. And I don't know why that is. Because when I'm outdoors, when I'm outside, when I'm spending time in the natural world, I don't feel that. And I think so many people at that time, the reason they were spending so much time outdoors is because they didn't feel that out there either. It was, for lack of a better word, a neutral space. It was as if the pandemic was happening outside of that. And I remember I was out camping when this happened. I watched the news, everyone was panicking, and I jumped in my truck and I just went out camping. I think I even posted a video on it. I think it was Quickie Overnight Virus Panic Break or something like that. And I remember pulling up to camp and making this beautiful, delicious meal and just looking at the beauty of the natural world around me and realizing that in what felt like an alternate universe, just a short 6-hour drive away from me, the world, the human world was in chaos. But out there, it was just another day. It was, the trees were still doing what the trees do, and the fish were still doing what the fish do, and the earth was still doing what the earth did. And I just remember experiencing such a dramatic contrast at that time. And also realizing that it was another one of those moments that kind of pulled me out of my perceived reality and was forcing its way into a different reality. And I think I realized that these things weren't happening to us. They were happening. And we were bystanders. We were in the way. And I felt like when I would retreat into the backcountry, into the mountains, into the wild places, I felt as if I was getting out of the way. And finding a more natural way of being. And there's one place that always made me feel at peace, and it was the wild. And I can't say that the answer to life's problems is a cabin in the woods. But I can say that it seems a more natural solution. And it seems a more habitable space than a city. So the answer might not be a cabin in the woods for most, but I think it might be for some. And so in this whole story of figuring out why things feel more aligned or natural to me in the wild, I came across the concept of biophilia. And biophilia was first introduced by a guy named Eric Fromm, who was a psychoanalyst, I don't know when. But it was popularized by a guy named Edward Wilson, who basically recognized that humans, at least in a large majority, have this innate attraction to nature, to the natural world, which makes sense if we are from the natural world. And the idea is that it's based on evolutionary adaptation, where we are able to adapt to our environment better and more naturally if we have an affiliation or an affinity for it, as if it were kin, so to speak. And I think that makes sense. I think most people prefer to live in temperate climates where the outdoors is more habitable and they can spend time outdoors and in the sun. And in places where that's not possible, we're bringing plants indoors and greening our spaces. And there's an entire adaptation of biophilia within engineering and architecture, where our neighboring province of British Columbia has really leaned into with rooftop gardens. And we even see it in the ancient civilizations like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, where it was one of the 8 wonders of the ancient world, this city of garden in the middle of the desert, supposedly. And lately, life has been getting weird again. There have been some things happening in my life internally that seem to want to pull me out of that perceived reality of natural synchronicity, I guess, where I like to view myself as just another animal on this planet experiencing life and doing that in whatever capacity that I can. When I was younger, I learned that I feel better outdoors. I feel better surrounded by nature. There seems to be a kinship that I recognize. And although I don't know where that comes from per se, I believe that it might be because it's where we come from. And we have spent so much time building walls and structures to separate ourselves from it that whatever magic or benefit we got from it early on, we seem to be losing. As if there's a part of us that is called to adventure and nature and exploration, and the call keeps getting unanswered, and the call seems to be coming in less and less frequently. Now, I've never really done a video like this where I've just sat here and talked to you guys about the things that I think and believe. But lately, again, I find myself being pulled out of that perceived reality and faced with an objective truth, an objective realization that while that might be true, that the perceived natural objective world of plants, animals, science, biology, where that might in fact be the real world, there seems to be another one at odds with it, but almost as natural. And that is the world in our minds, the perception of our reality. And in doing what I've been doing for as long as I have, leaving a career, a steady job, in pursuit of something greater or more authentic to myself, or to put it a better way, deciding to flip the script and write my own story and share some of that limitedly with the internet and the world. I think I've realized that the answer to our problems might not be a cabin in the woods. But that doesn't mean the answer's not in the wild. And maybe it means that the answer could just be a walk in the woods. Maybe it's more walks in the woods to touch grass, as people say these days. So I don't know who this video is for, and I don't know what tomorrow really has for me, or what it has for my family, or what it has for you and your family. But it is New Year's and Christmas. It's the holiday season right now. and the weather has changed, and we're coming into a season of new things. And I thought it would be interesting to share a little bit more about myself, what I think, and who I am, and why I think that the world could do with a little bit more biophilia. And why I think the world could do with a return to a more aligned, natural state where we don't spend as much time online and we spend more time together and in the world. Because when I engage with the world, when I go out and explore it and touch it and smell it and feel it, I feel better. And I think you would too. And I think if more of us did more often, those moments where we are ripped out of our subjective experience maybe wouldn't be so abrasive. Maybe folks could feel like they could be themselves more naturally. Maybe the answer isn't a cabin in the woods. But maybe the answer is to visit it more often. I think I'm going to end it there. I hope this was more than just some random ramblings. And I hope, dare I say, I pray that if you find yourself this winter, this year, or if you found yourself at any time last year in a moment of objective chaos and uncertainty, faced with something you really didn't see coming, whether it's a traumatic loss, or you were a victim of something horrible, or you were the perpetrator of something horrible, I would encourage you to find whatever answer you're looking for in the outdoors. And spend some time alone in these wild places, because I think that's where we find out who we are. When we're in a place that is where we're from and nurturing and healing. For the most part. Because there is a side where nature also doesn't care. It's brutal, but it's fair. And I think that realization doesn't come easily, but it gives you a perspective that you're not going to find online. So, as we draw this year to a close, I want to thank everybody who's been subscribed to this channel, who have partaken in the things that we've done in the last few years, like purchasing a Yucatan camper or attending the Alberta Outdoor Adventure Expo. Because I think it matters. that we encourage people to explore and spend time in the great outdoors. I feel nature has something to teach us so long as we're willing to learn. And so for 2025, I pray that you learn something and that you spend some more time outside, because that's where things grow. And at the end of the day, that's where we're from. So, live free, be wild, and I'll see you on the next one.